Hey guys, welcome back to another devlog for Foot Joust. This week we're going to be picking back up directly from where we didn't finish last time, which is our loot box opening game mode. Now that we have created our shop system where players can purchase all kinds of loot crates and store them in their inventory, we can now create our specialized game mode for opening these crates called Loot Smash. Loot Smash is something I want to create to be more interactive and satisfying with the items that the player purchases and the loot box concept in general. Instead of just clicking on the purchase in the store and randomly generating some loot, this game mode will place all your purchase crates in a single run so you can run through and smash every single one, combined with the fear of accidentally missing out on a crate as well. As of writing the script, it has now been well over a month since my last video and since I've worked on the game or any game dev at all, so sorry for that, as I have been on holiday and spending some time on other things and taking a break from game dev in general. So after spending a few hours just trying to get back into the groove of things, blankly looking at the editor and my code, I started by dealing with the dependency issues when creating this new game mode. Because I've had to strip certain elements from the gameplay to just spawn and handle only crates, as well as the need to create a new game over screen and a heads up display, I had to create this simple enum here to differentiate between regular gameplay and a loot smash mode, so the score manager doesn't freak out when trying to look for something that doesn't exist anymore. So now in the heads up display we have removed the regular point system and have kept the items that we are going to be picking up, while in the top we have an indicator of how many boxes are left to spawn. Now with that out of the way, I started to figure out exactly how I wanted the whole system to work. So I drew a quick workflow of how I wanted things to run. From the start screen, a box will pop up that displays what crates you have in your inventory, just to the left, some text in the middle, and some kind of watch ad and remove ads button, but more on that later. Once the scene has loaded, we want to remove all of the player's inventory and offload them somewhere else and save it to prevent any possible exploits. The game will then randomly spawn the different crates until there are none left using the Loot Smash manager we will create. Once the game is over, the player will run off the screen and the game will save all of the player's data. Finally, the end results will pop up and display what the player has collected. Now that we have a clear outline, I can get started implementing it. So the first thing that I needed to do was update the item manager that we made in the previous video. The item manager stores all the purchasable and unlockable items information like price, descriptions, icons, etc. But more importantly, the amount the player currently owns in their inventory. The only thing it was missing was the actual spawnable prefab, so I just quickly updated the class to contain a game object to spawn and then drop the prefab in. Now because I've only created one crate gameplay object, I will have to use the one basic crate as a spawnable for all the others in the meantime. So the first thing that needs to happen in the Loot Smash manager is this for loop. It will scan through the item manager and get what crates the player has purchased and store them in a different array in the script. While this array is being filled, the item manager is resetting the player's inventory to 0 one by one. Now if we have a look in the inspector, the item inventory is completely empty. When it's done, the game will save this information permanently, but more on that later. So if the player plays Loot Smash and doesn't get what they want before the end of the game, they can't just quit and try again. Their inventories will be permanently wiped and saved before the game ends, while this newly generated array will still keep a reference to what needs to be spawned in. Now here's what happens during the actual gameplay. We have a simple timer and an update loop that goes off every couple of seconds. Then it goes to a method using a while loop to scan through our new array to find out what crate to randomly spawn in next. As you can see on the right here, every time a crate spawns in, the value is decreased in this array. When the amount of crates to spawn hits 0, the game will wait a few seconds and our player will run off the screen like so. And now I think the next step in the process will be to create the end screen. So I'm going to get to work on that and see what I come up with. So now when the game is over, this box pops up and shows you what you earned during the run. On the left will be the coins and crosses, while this big empty box will display whatever power-ups the player has picked up. At the moment, there are no power-ups in the game, so we will need to come back and add this in later. After completing that, I also created this front menu screen. When the player has one or more crates in their inventory, this button will become interactable, and when clicked, this menu will pop up. It will show you what crates you have on the side here, while in the middle will have a message explaining the game mode. Down the bottom will be the play button. It will also warn the player they're about to watch an ad before they start playing. In a previous video, I covered what this was about on my monetization devlog, so if you haven't seen that or need a refreshing, this will be the only ad-based monetization in the game. The player can simply watch an ad and load all their purchase crates into a run and try to break and open them all. To make the ads feel less intrusive, I've made it so that the player can use as many crates as they want on a single run, so they can save them all up and then come back and open them all later. The other option down here will be the button that will take you to the support the developer page, which is still yet to be created. On this page, the player will be able to purchase the one and only microtransaction, which removes the ads permanently, plus a few other goodies. Now at the moment I haven't set up any monetization options at all, so when clicking the play button it will just take you straight to the actual loot smash mode. Since we got as far as we did for designing these crates, implementing them into the game's item manager, and creating the loot box mode, we may as well finish making them into real game objects. So to get started, I had to modify the original crate script a little bit. Instead of creating an individual script for every single crate, I wanted a single script where all the parameters could be modified for each single variable. I then quickly changed the hard-coded values to modifiable variables in the editor. At the moment, editing the percentages is still a little fiddly, but it makes sense to me and it's quicker for now than trying to redo and figure out an entirely new system, which I may potentially do later. After that was sorted, I created all the new prefabs, updated their main sprite, and entered the data for each item's spawn rate. Then I took all the existing sprites and cut them up to create the breakable versions of each one, just like the original crate. For the steel and gold crates, I made a slight variance where the lid just pops off instead. Then I put them all into the game, just like this. So this next part came from working on the Loot Smash Manager. For a long time I've wanted to change the spawn rate during regular gameplay, which has been sitting in the back burner for a while now. I created this original spawn system following tutorials over a year and a half ago. It would scan for how many enemies are in the level and wait till a certain amount before spawning in the next enemy. I didn't fully understand it, and at the same time I didn't want to mess around with it to make it more flexible and try and control how often enemies spawn. But after using this timer system and using the while loop in the Loot Smash Manager, it made me rethink about updating it. I wanted to change the spawn rate because the game feels too slow, and increasing it would make it a lot more intense and constantly engaging. There was originally too much anticipation and waiting for enemies to get close. After deciding to follow through with the idea, I reworked the entire system. So now it uses this timer that goes off every 1.5 seconds. If the spawner hasn't been paused by enemies with multiple phases, it will then go to this method to find out what to spawn in next. It first sets some variables before entering this while loop. Nested in this while loop is another while loop that searches to find an enemy that has been selected by the player for this run. Next it will randomly roll a number. It will then check that number against the enemy's spawn rate. If it fails, this whole while loop will repeat and try for another enemy. When one is successful, it will change this bool to say enemy has been found, then it will exit this loop and proceed to instantiate the enemy. Now we have complete control over exactly how often an enemy will spawn in, so when we go back to look at the gameplay, it looks more like this. So that's everything. Hopefully in the next one we will be able to tackle a proper serialization system for saving all of our data. Last time, I also put out a poll to see if you would all be interested in a tutorial on my shop system. A few of you seemed interested and had voted yes so far. If you haven't seen the post and still want to put in a vote, then please go ahead. So that's all for now. Thank you for making it all the way through this video. If you want to ask me anything, let me know down in the comments, and I will see you all next time.